All right. Now I'm very pleased to welcome back the co-host of the Deep Dive podcast, as well as the director of content at BetSperts and Mr. Andy Molitor from BetSperts.com. You can follow Andy on X at AndyMSFW. Jolly old St. Andy is back, and it is our Christmas show, and it is Christmas time, Andy. Are you in the holiday spirit?
My shopping is done. So like that's when I'm finally like not stressed out anymore. I've gotten everything. The kids have all this. I got the wife's presents. We do each other's stockings. I got that taken care of. I mean, there's still a couple things that have to show up today from Amazon, and they better show up. But otherwise, yeah, I'm in the spirit. We're gonna
Attaboy.
we're hosting we're hosting a Christmas the weekend after. So this weekend should just be chill, watch football, hang with the immediate family, open some presents, and maybe not even get out of your pajamas on Monday.
Oh, you shouldn't. Don't get out of your pajamas. No reason to. Definitely have your share of whatever you like to do. Yeah, it's stressful until you're done, and then all of a sudden, that last second, like, holy shit, I forgot that person, will pop up, and you can think of it now. It's not gonna. It won't come to mind. It'll only come to mind right before you need it. So, that's what usually happens to me. And I'm almost done too. Amazon is my go-to shopping place as well. I think it's been like
Oh
that for a
yeah.
few years now. Love me some Prime, my friend. Next door delivery, or sometimes they deliver even on the same day. So that's always good, Andy. What we got going on here? Lots of
Yeah.
football coming up, and NFL Week 16, and there's no bye weeks no more, Andy. We have a full slate of games, but a little of these games are a little bit ugly. Would you not say?
Yeah, there's some pretty ugly ones. And basically, as I was looking at my power ratings today, there is a real heavy basement full of teams. Like there's a lot of bad teams. There's those bad teams, but the teams that are just better than the bad teams, there's just like 15 of them. It's such a mess from like, and I guess I'm fine putting the Lions in with the other big 6, 7, 8 teams. But everybody past the Lions down to like the rest of it's pretty rough. Like as far as the gap. So I have the Niners gap, the other good six teams gap,
Mhm,
and then
mhm.
Detroit little gap, and then where do you go from there? It's like Tampa, Minnesota, the Rams. Those aren't great teams, so it's really tough with some of these because there's so many teams that are just so close to each other, and where I have them rated right now, where the market has them rated. It makes it tricky, and obviously later in the year the market is just more informed, so it makes it tough.
Oh, I agree. Like for my power ratings, I have the 13th team as the average team, not the 16th or 7th, right? Because it really drops. I
Yeah,
just
Drew and I were talking about that as well. Our center point just keeps going up and up and up, and the mean and the median are nowhere near each other. It's a little different kind of year, isn't it?
oh god, yeah. And it's like the top just makes the bottom so much worse. And you're right, the median and the mean has been going up and up, and that's a great way to put it. Man, it makes this handicap very interesting here because there's just it feels like the variance is high. Hopefully, some of that stuff gets nipped in the future. There's a lot of issues with the NFL going on right now. There's a lot of injuries here. I think quarterbacks getting smoked out of the pocket and things like that. But stuff that the injury report's always something in the last few years that we've been really keen on. So even though this podcast, we recorded on Wednesday and it comes out Thursday, it's still not late enough in some cases. So we can just do the best we can and pass on some of these situations. We have, as a Bears fan,
Oh, and sometimes it's just good information to pat. Like what we're doing here, recording it on Wednesday. Just like this is the stuff we're waiting for. These are
yep,
the injuries you probably need to know about before you can make an informed decision. And it's what 3 Eastern right now. There's it's gonna start. We're gonna start getting more and more of the West Coast injury reports and stuff.
mhm.
Eventually, we'll have some sort of idea. But even like you said, it's still just Wednesday. There's so many people that take Wednesday off as just a rest day for vets, and sometimes guys are just still getting a little more physical therapy before they can fully go. So, truthfully, like Thursday and Friday reports are the big ones.
For sure. Friday, for sure. Yeah, the big names will rest more, and you would think they're injured. They have a questionable, but they're completely fine to play. That's what you got to shuffle through, really. But there's just so much fraud out there. It's like teams that are just so close to the playoffs, they just crumble. Like the Bears were actually really had an open spot last week with all the losses, and then the same, the Vikings lose the night before, the Packers lost, and then they just blow it. It's just, these are fraudulent teams, and one of these fraudulent teams is going to make the playoffs. And as a favorite, the other team that they're playing, you really have to consider, unless it's another one of those teams, of laying these points, man, because these teams just don't want to win.
Yeah, I looked at kind of the playoff picture, and I have my fully updated power ratings on Wednesday morning. I have everything through. Obviously, there's still some things that can change with big injuries like quarterbacks and whatnot, but I ran it through and I did some season sims and came out at the end, and it looks like it's going to be such a mess. Unlike the AFC side, basically, I think I had a pretty decent chance that there are going to be 6 teams with 10 wins.
Yeah.
And obviously one of those is going to be the AFC South champ, but it still creates like a weird 5-way tie situation for some of these, the wild cards. And the NFC honestly wasn't that much better. There was a bunch of teams that were going to be kind of stuck at the 8-9 win section, and there could be a bunch of weird tiebreakers as well. So there's going to be some teams with the same record as playoff teams for sure left out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's, now that we, last couple of years have the 7th team in now, it's just more frauds coming in, and you can think about the same in other sports like the NBA and stuff like that. The more teams you add, the more chances that you're not going to get a good game in the beginning here. And these teams will be ready. There's no more rest spots or letdowns or just looking kind of trying to heal yourself. They're going full bore when it comes to the playoffs. So I'll be ready wild card weekend to fire even on some of the favorites. But either way, last time I had you on, beginning of the season, we talked about some exotic markets, and I know you have to have a few of these things still alive, Andy. I've lost my fair share, dude. I have, but I have a few alive too. So I'd like to ask you first, what do you still have going on for the futures that have a possible chance of hitting?
I do have a few smaller bets. Like, I have a weird thing about if I suggest something, if I say like, hey, this isn't a bad bet, eventually I'll go and put a few bucks on it. It's just like, I have this weird superstition about that where it's like, oh man, I said this was a good idea and I didn't bet it. How stupid am I at this point? But I did some writing, the newsletter over the summer when we were just firing it up. There wasn't much football yet before we get to preseason. So I started writing about all the awards markets. Yeah. And I mean, I have a lot of dead tickets obviously in that, but I have Tyreek and Christian McCaffrey. The preseason, I had to pull up the newsletter here. What was my third one was Hurts. I forgot about Hurts at 30-1, but preseason best numbers you get on Tyreek and McCaffrey was 15 for McCaffrey and 20 for Tyreek. And I mean, obviously that's just been a 2-man race for the whole year. That's basically, and those weren't big bets, but still it felt good, like getting 5-6 weeks in and realizing like, oh, one of these two is probably winning if they both don't leave with season-ending injuries. That's why I've been a strong proponent of Shanahan slowing down on how many carries CMC gets, but those flipped actually this week because Tyreek sat out. He was minus 200 favorite. Now it's CMC -2, like 175, something like that. But man, I have some bad ones though too.
That's for offensive player of the year.
Offensive player of the year.
Okay, because I still got that alive. Yeah, I got. Oh, go ahead.
No, and it really, that one, I really think that one's coming home. The stranger things have happened, but like, it's going to be nice because some of the other ones from preseason were like Eberflus Coach of the Year and some real stinkers to go along with that. My rookie, I have like a Zay Flowers Rookie of the Year.
You just can't say it that much. Just even if you're thinking it, just don't say it. Maybe that's it. No, actually, I feel the same way. If I say something and it hits, I'll be pissed. It's like I have to bet it now. Even if it's $10, I have to bet it, and that's that pizza money. I have no problem with people making pizza money bets and stuff like that. Anyway, on these situations, it's fun, and we don't know over that. But I do have CMC at 15-1. We did cover that.
There you go.
So
I mean,
that's one that's so live.
If Tyreek sits this way, if Tyreek sits again, it might be locked up. I mean, it's getting there.
What if he gets MVP though? What if something happens and Brock Purdy craps the bed and
that would kill it. It's so hard. It's so hard for
yeah.
a running back now. I really think it'll be a really, really crazy year. Not only
Okay.
from the running back, but all the good quarterbacks have to be bad, at that point. I just don't think he's a actual candidate.
Yeah. I mean, I had him, he's my biggest one at 15-1 at a half unit. And I think I had TJ Watt most sacks, and he does have the most sacks by like one. I think it's like 1.5,
Yeah,
right?
Daniil Hunter is right there, isn't he?
Yes, he's right under him. And so I have 8.5-1 on that for a half unit. So those are my ones that are still alive. I mean, I have like CJ Stroud most interceptions, and the dude's like been one of the best I've seen at not throwing
Yeah.
picks. It's like, why didn't I bet him as offensive rookie of the year instead? Now he's got to get back playing. I have Aiden O'Connell. I thought at 100-1 it's good. Well, I just checked, he's 250-1 now for offensive.
Yeah, and the nice part too about your most sacks bet is Daniil Hunter has to play the Lions, 2 weeks out of 3. That's a pretty good offensive line. Maybe he gets skunked there on the sacks because he's an animal for sure.
Yeah, Goff's been good at getting rid of the ball. He can feel the pressure coming better than he has before in the past, and they roll him out a lot. I hope you're right, because most regular season passing yards, Justin Herbert, that's dead. Defensive rookie of the year, Joey Porter's dead. And then my other one was MVP Joe Burrow.
Yeah, Drew did talk me into some Micah Parsons defensive player of the year. I think he's a slight favorite. It's just been a three horse race all year, basically. Like who had the biggest play on prime time, or who, Watt brings that touchdown back. He's the favorite. We have a big game from Garrett.
Mhm.
He's the favorite. Parsons is just all around good, and he's never gotten the award. Like he's the favorite right now. He took a little step back last week, but that one's still a 3-man race. I'd like to get Parsons home. That wasn't a very big number. He was the favorite when it opened, but we still liked it. But yeah, coach of the year, I'm drawing very dead on anything I have there. Rookie of the year, my other tickets were like Jaden Reed and I had maybe like Rashee Rice or something. I put in another long shot wide receiver for a few bucks that was never going to be close. Obviously, I love Zay Flowers. That one isn't coming home. That one's probably decided. I never did get involved in defensive rookie, I don't think. That was a tricky one too with the Will Anderson pricing preseason.
Oh yeah, it was, and I just thought Porter could, with TJ Watt there, might force some interceptions. Just wasn't enough for that one, but it was fun. And if I can just hit these two, I'm going to be profitable. I'm kind of hoping for it. During the year, there's some bets made from people. I didn't do much this year during the year. I think I was just more focused on the lines itself. But either way, we got a huge slate to talk about, so we probably should jump right into that.
Yeah, let's get to week 16 where I've only made the one bet so far, but we're starting to work towards a few more.
Well, that's good. We can talk it through then. And we'll start with the Thursday game. And Thursday, we have a terrible matchup here, right? The Saints and the Rams. I mean, it's not as terrible as it could be, but the Rams actually, here's the thing. The Rams were my biggest season win total over or under 7.5, but I did buy some back at 6.5, thank God. But I'm still over invested in the under 7.5. Now, my problem is they have 7 wins now.
Yeah.
It's either 6 or 7 they have. I think they might have 7. I'll have to double check, but this is, a favorite.
They do. They're 7-7 currently.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And in this game, they just announced Olave's going to play. I assumed Olave's going to play. I think the Saints are just one. I bet the Saints, and I bet them at 4.5. But this is just a low confidence game. I kind of, after the bet, like a day or two, looked deeper, and I thought to myself that, man, I could see the Saints getting beat bad, and I could see them maybe winning this game. I just thought giving the Rams too much credit here. I thought the line was, and I know Nakua and Kupp are healthy, and the Rams are actually the healthiest I've seen in a while. But I mean, the motivation's there for both teams. Both are trying to make the playoffs. It doesn't mean they're going to win. I just thought the spread was a little too high. My numbers say close to 3. So I made the play. I'm not super excited about it. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't have this open, but I should pull up my stuff for the week. I'm just short of 3. And it depends how you feel about some of the injuries up front for the Rams and how much Olave matters. I think he does matter. Getting him and Shaheed on the field would be great,
Yeah.
especially if you had some pretty good receivers start the season, and it hasn't kind of come to fruition. Last week, little bit of a mirage win. That's a bad team. You beat a bad team. Your defense looked good again because it was a bad offense. Like, it's still a defense that has taken a big blow since Lattimore got hurt, and they've had some just attrition by subtraction, and the fact that maybe they just didn't have that good of a defense to start with. It looked awful good to start the season. It's still rated fairly highly, but we've seen a few games against good teams where it just hasn't looked nearly as good. So I think, the only matchup that matters for anyone here looking at this game is, do you think they can limit the passing game for Stafford? And it's probably going to come down if they can get any pressure. Can they get pressure up the middle? Can they get to him? It's been an okay offensive line, I guess. I'm gonna have to look at my actual ratings for them. I know they have some guys that are a little questionable this week, and it's been a lot better since they've been able to run the ball. Kyron Williams matters a lot to this team for some reason. Like, when they have some semblance of a running game, this offense moves a lot smoother. I was surprised we didn't see a little more overaction, I guess, with Olave in, and how the Rams have taken some money to the over this year. But not a strong opinion. I would lean Saints, but I also hate them. That's speaking of futures. So, speaking of futures, I do have some Saints to win the division at a plus number I took earlier in the year. I don't love it. My numbers right now say that it would be, Tampa Bay should be the favorites. I'm projecting Tampa Bay. I mean, it's like an election. I'm projecting Tampa Bay is taking these votes, but it's not something I love right now. So essentially, I'm invested in the Saints a little bit as it is. So I'll be staying off.
It's funny. The Tampa's now in the position to do what the Bears, the Vikings, and the Packers did last week: choke. That it's almost like you just give them an option, let them get a win, and then they blow it. And
even the Falcons were had a terribly easy opponent last week, and they could have kept a nice lead there in the division, and instead now they have like a 20% chance to even make the playoffs.
Yeah. The EPA on the shows defensive for the defense on the Saints is good. And even that Lattimore, he's been out 3-4 weeks now, I'd say. I think it was mid-November. He got injured, I believe, against the Vikings, actually. They've still kind of held their own, but you're right. The schedule's crap, though. It's kind of bolstering their stats. And now you have a powerful Rams offense with two very healthy receivers, and that Lattimore does worry me. So that's kind of where my regrets started coming in, is what you just said there, is the passing, the deep passing game. I think the 10 yards and plus out routes and fade routes and stuff, that the Kua and Cup should eat this team alive. And let's not forget that they also have a pretty good tight end in Higbee. Is he coming back? I have to check.
But I think his status has just been up in the air for the past 3 weeks. I don't know. It's that's my afternoon project, just to catch up on some of the. I was talking to Drew this morning about, like, are you seeing anything on this? Like, we just weren't getting good Will Levis updates. There's just a few guys. It's like, I'm not hearing anything here. So
yeah, the injury thing's been weird. It's especially when it came to that Seattle Eagles game. It's just like, seriously, we can't get a starting quarterback for this game.
Yeah. 15 minutes before we're going.
Hell, this don't turn into the NBA, please. NFL, don't turn into the NBA. No, and so that's my worry. But at the same time, Derek Carr, he's a dog here, and it's past the 4, it's past the 3. And that's where I looked at it. I still stick with the Saints as least as lean at the 4 right now. Let's look at the next game. We got the Bengals at the Steelers. The Steelers are +2, total 37. The only thing I'm going to say here is Pickett going to play? Because I think I would bet the Steelers if Pickett, but if he's not, I don't think Mason Rudolph is anything. I think he's just as bad as Mitch or worse. I would play the Bengals. That's literally where I'm at the 2. Now, you have to be fast, because I think other people are thinking the same thing I am. But it's a terrible spot for the Bengals, and it's just a great spot for the Steelers, a rallying spot. We still can make the playoffs. The Bengals kind of a little fat and happy with Jake Browning, what he's doing, and now without Jamar Chase, T. Higgins is a beast, but man, this has got to end at some point, buddy.
Yeah, it's a weird one too with injuries. It's not something I want to touch early in the week because both starting safeties were, I think, not just limited but missed. Minka and I can't think of the other guy's name right now for the Steelers. They have Hayward in the concussion protocol. Like you did get Watt and Highsmith back from their concussions right off the bat, but man, like if you're missing both starting safeties, it's a secondary that can be attacked as it is. And even without Chase, like you said, you got Higgins, you got Boyd, you got a couple tight ends. You've got this Brown, who actually he was injured as well. Now he's questionable or limited practice for the Bengals. Not one I'm super excited to touch. It does sound like Pickett is practicing, but they're not going to be able to get him the reps with the ones. They're not planning on getting him the reps with the ones. It sounds like it's going to be Rudolph. Pickett's high side would be he's fine and he dresses as like an emergency quarterback or something, and maybe like a next week kind of thing for him.
Is that what you believe, though? Because Tomlin's BS'd us before, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come down to me like checking with the beat reporters and seeing what they're actually seeing at practice. Like if Mason is taking all the snaps with the ones, like, I don't know why you would try that kind of subterfuge. It'd just be, self-defeating to not let your starting quarterback take the snaps with next week's game plan. So kind of something I'm going to dig into this afternoon. It's on my list of going through the Steelers beat reporters, see what they saw at practice today, because I think it's probably just going to be Rudolph, which I thought I'd be a bigger downgrade. I didn't realize how poorly Mitch had played. I'm like, oh man, I thought we were going to drop heavily, but I only dropped it like a point for. Mason.
Oh, I dropped him a lot more than that. As a
Bears
fan,
very bad.
As a Bears fan, I saw how lost this dude's been over the past years. But even like this year, he's one read, and if he even hits that, he's just toast. And not a good quarterback, but neither is Mason Rudolph. So I've been fading the Steelers. Thank goodness they've been my little bit of. I was on the Colts last week. It was just one of those spots where I felt like I knew more than the market. It's very rare. But it's like one of those like, dude, Mitch is more of a downgrade is what I thought. But here's the weird thing. Joe Burrow, is he a complete dick or something to this team? Because now they're playing out of their ass. They have not been playing well for Joe Burrow, but they're playing great for Jake Browning. I mean, what does it take?
We just never, we really didn't get many games of him at 100%. And a big part is just like getting this Brown involved in the offense, Chase Brown, rather than just trying to. I mean, Mixon wasn't somebody that they, I don't think really trusted to be the future bell cow or anything. So the fact that they're able to do a little more in the run game, and obviously he's killer in some of these screens as well, I think that's been a big part of it. And just, having Higgins healthy, having everyone healthy. Mm-hmm. I think Boyd has been for the most part in, but Higgins obviously missed a little bit here and there as well. So the team for the most part is healthy. And yeah, just kudos to the coaching staff and Browning for keeping it all together through this.
Yeah, 100%. It's
because it's a bad defense. Like the Bengals are a bad defense. So you get kind of weakness on weakness there with Mason Rudolph versus a terrible defense. I'm not excited to get involved in this one.
I'm not either, but I don't even want to tease it. It's just highly variant. I would have to take the Bengals if I had to make a play right now, but I'm just going to lean the Bengals if we think Pickett's not going to play.
Steelers were in a teaser spot last week too, and I avoided them. I just said I don't know if I can do this with Mitch, man.
Good call.
And with Mason too, there's just too many situations where Bengals win this by 15 without even looking that good.
100%. There is way too many situations where the Bengals could just exploit the quarterback again, and that Steelers offensive line isn't looking that good either. So a lot of issues with Steelers. And yeah, remember they fired Canada a couple weeks ago, and it's not like they replaced him, even though he wasn't good. It's like you didn't do anything.
No, they haven't got any better.
So there you go. Bills, Chargers plus 11.5 now. This was just plus 12. Little money might have moved this. Total is at 44. What do you have for this one?
Yeah, some early openers were way off on this. This place was 14.5. People said, even I can back East and stick at that kind of number.
Oh.
And yeah, it can't feel good to, start watching that game, but you're probably going to have a good number if you took, even the 13.5. I think that was probably too much. I can't even get the number out to that far. Obviously, I've had to make a decent size adjustment with Herbert, and this is probably like a touchdown. As much as I've hated the Chargers, so it's crazy we're getting that big of adjustment. I don't know if it was quite that big from Herbert to Easton. He's been rough, but saw a little bit against the Raiders in garbage time technically, where did garbage time start for that team?
Pretty quick.
Midway through the second quarter when they were down by.
I stopped looking at the score at that time because I was one of those idiots that grabbed the 3.5 when it popped and it came back down to 3.
That was an unbelievable game that happened with a total that low. Just that the Raiders suddenly they got a lot of plus field position. That was a big part of the issue. But Chargers with extra time and kind of Bills have all the pressure here. Like they can't screw this game up. Like they're the ones. The Chargers have nothing to play for. The players who have contracts, the players who need to play well, and they're going to play hard. But a lot of footloose and fancy free from everyone else. Like there's not a lot of expectations for Easton Stick. Keenan Allen missed practice again today. That's pretty rough. But yeah, all the pressure's on the Bills here. I don't love laying this many points on the road, even after last week.
Oh, it's like I have a rule and I break this sometimes. You don't bet on a team that looked extra great and fade a team that looks extra bad the next week.
Yeah.
You are losing better if you do that in general. And even in saying that, I couldn't get to the Chargers. My number is about my power is 10.5. My algorithm is 12.5. So it's like I'm not even. I wasn't near the 14 either, but I don't want to. There's a coaching bump usually when a coach gets fired, especially if the team hated him, kind of like you saw with the Raiders. And we see this every year. What are we talking about? We see this every year. We've been here a long time, but it's almost weird because it should have been a bump last week to Stick. Like everyone's disbelieving him. Now the new quarterback's going to come in. The team should rally a little bit. They didn't rally. They fumbled the ball away completely. They didn't care. They're out there. They weren't covering. Asante Samuel wasn't covering. It was weird. But now, with how embarrassed they are, I expect some sort of an effort. And you're right. The Bills coming off the Cowboys. It's an ugly game. There's going to be some sharp money still coming in my opinion, on the Chargers. It won't be any of my money coming in, but I just this is stay away from me. I don't want anything to do with this game. Next game we have Sunday. The Packers at the Panthers, and here we are. The Panthers are +5 in nowhere land, and a very low total of 36.5. Man, I'll tell you this: we used to be like, "Oh, you're laying points past the 3 when the total's under 40." That's not really happening this year, though. It's a little different this year, Andy.
No, I mean I missed the best in number, but at these prices, I would still consider Green Bay, which I probably won't do. Carolina, you've seen any life you've seen out of Carolina has been defensively. They have some good defensive players. They are at home. Like probably even at this low total, if I had to bet this game, it would be the under. Green Bay's defense is a huge liability. I don't see Carolina being able to exploit that. Even against Atlanta last week, we just really, really didn't see them get going until one final drive. The Atlanta defense has had some nice play earlier in the season, but with some of the injuries, it's been up and down. Kind of lack of pass rush at time. The secondary's been beat up. Like I would expect a little more out of that team, and the fact that they essentially just had, kind of one drive that they got it done. I'm not expecting them to be able to attack this Green Bay defense like we saw Baker Mayfield do last week. So this is an underlook because Green Bay, that offense came back to earth a little bit, and like I said, there's a little bit of life in this Carolina defense at times on the road. And, even though it's not too far north, it's still a coastal kind of area, not super close, but still we get some weather in Carolina once in a while. Obviously, like we were talking about with, we didn't mention it, but in that Pittsburgh game, keep an eye on that one too. We've had some weather these last few weeks. So,
every game is supposed to, like, if you look at it, there's chances of rain in every game this week, pretty much. Even the Jets, slight chance of rain. Yeah, it's weird, and sometimes slight chance turns into a downpour, like we saw last week in a few games. App State, the college bowl game, that App State game,
Yeah.
hotel, that was a freaking monsoon. And, it wasn't supposed to be that bad. So it's definitely, you got to look at the running game a lot this late in the season. The Packers should have a big edge running the football. This Panthers defense is very suspect against the run. As a matter of fact, the Panthers are one of the worst teams next to Denver against the run. Now, the Packers are in a great spot. And, after that ugly loss at home, you expect them in the rally. And Panthers are kind of in a letdown-ish spot. It's like you got your second win. You're not playing for a draft pick.
You don't want any more wins. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. They lost their pick to the Bears, but I guess they can improve their second round or something.
Yeah. I mean, there's no sense in and maybe who knows? Who knows? At this point, just que sera, whatever happens. But
I think they take this game off, if anything. But I can't predict that. I just look at it as more of a chance of less effort, I guess, since you got the big division win. And I don't know. That's how I look at this game. And I'm not laying the 5. I got 4. I got my number at 4.7. I would assume if I had to lay it, I would lay the 5. But I think a Packer money line type situation ain't bad. And I think with the points going down, I think money lines are a little bit better to look at this year if you want to pair it with something in spots. I'm not a big parlay guy. I preach usually against spread parlays, but I think the Packers win, and maybe you pair them with a Denver or something, and you can get almost even money with that. So, that's my thoughts on that one. I've been having some success this year in just those two games, two money line parlays. So that's where I'm looking at this one. I see the matchup, Packers running all over this team. All right, let's move on to the next game. And we have the Lions at the Vikings. And dang it, this moved up to 3.5 now. The total is 47. You're up in Vikings land, Andy. I'll let you start on this one. It looks like it hit the 3. It came back up. It came back down. It came back up. I see a little fight here going on within this number.
I'm a little lower on the Lions than some teams. This defense has been, especially I split it out just over the last 5-6 weeks. Abhorrent in a few ways. They've been very, very bad against the pass. I guess it kind of, how you feel about Mullins is how you feel about this game. Obviously, Brian O'Neill matters a ton if he's in or out. And, I guess we'll see on Madison as well. But I don't know. If you're a Vikings fan, you're probably hoping Madison sits another week. You saw some very lively play out of Ty Chandler. They probably should have got that win. I thought they were a little conservative with some of the defensive play calling late in that game. They should have been blitzing heavy like that. They don't have good coverage pieces. So by, dropping 8, you're just sitting there with a bunch of guys who can't cover, and they were still finding spots in the zone. So hopefully Flores took something from that game, because it's, like I said, this is a tough offensive line to play against. They have 2 really good running backs. Even being a little lower on the Lions here, I'd probably pass on Minnesota, even though my numbers like it a bit. Just playing. Well, what do we have here for where this opened? It opened about 3. Yeah. I guess I'm fine. I'm fine with this number. If anything, I was kind of considering this total. Let's see, what do we open at? It has been bet up a little, not a ton. Detroit totals should probably be bet up at this point. If they're playing a defense they can get, they're good for 24, and this defense isn't great. So maybe a slightly into the over, but probably staying away from this one.
I have no idea. I have no reason to rush into this. I did kind of like the Lions at 3. There's no way you're going to see anything under that. You're right about the Lions defense, but Nick Mullins is just a bad clutch kind of quarterback. And I think that just goes back to, as far as I remember, even in the San Francisco days and things like that. I think he is a very high prone of throwing picks and screwing up. And that's where the Vikings D can fake look good. Maybe, I know that they do have some injuries there, some guys to watch. I wonder if CJ Gardner-Johnson is coming back, because he's supposed to this week. He didn't last week. I was hoping it would be last week. I missed out on that, by the way. I had Lions in the parlay. I didn't lay the 4.5, and obviously that was a very easy win for them. So I hate having to come back on them the very next week on an away game in a division when the Vikings are fighting. And it's just not good for betting. You miss the game that they kick butt in, and you think you're going to go back on them again. I hate that. It just doesn't work. So I'll probably stay off this game, but
Yeah, CJ GJ has been out forever with that pec injury. He's practicing. The clock is whatever. Like he's still on the IR technically, I believe, where he's in that spot where the clock is ticking for his return. But oftentimes you don't find out about this stuff till like Saturday when they say, all right, he practiced all week. We'll activate him today, because they don't have to. I think they can activate him like the day of the game, in that 90-minute window or 90 minutes before game time. I think you have up till then to actually say, he's off IR. He's starting this week. So kind of a pain in the ass for us. But I think if you watch his practice reports, if he practices in full this whole week, he'll probably be good to go. They need him.
They do need him. The problem is they lost Aleem McNeil, and that's a big run clogger. And that's where, like you said, Ty Chandler, I thought he was better than Madison. I picked him up in fantasy. He's been good. I see them controlling the clock and running the ball and uglying up this game, and that's where they can cover and possibly win. If you get any type of Jared Goff that played the Bears or played the Packers, then the Vikings win this game outright. So that's the problem with this one as well. And Vikings are borderline in that realm too. Like you said, you barely have the Lions are borderline in that realm. I think that's funny. All right, let's go on to the next game. So no play here. We'll move on to the Browns Texans. Texans plus 2.5. Total is 40. I'm just gonna say I'm teasing the Texans. I'm teasing them up to 8.5. I shouldn't have to say more. They're fighting for the playoffs. The Browns, Flacco is interception prone. They didn't deserve to win that game against the Bears. They played the right team to be down by 10, I guess. But easy teasy leg for me. Even with the backup quarterback, it's fine. You have an experienced quarterback there as backup, and he did completely fine last week.
Yeah, I'll probably throw it in teasers. It won't be super high on my list of my favorite legs because I think both quarterbacks can be a little high volatility. But at this point, it should be a low scoring, kind of ugly game that probably stays within a score here. So I don't hate it.
What's interesting about this? Both these teams were dead nuts dead last week, and they both won.
Yeah.
Blowing up people's plays, blowing up some survivor plays on Tennessee. It's funny that they're playing each other because these were the two teams.
And it's funny. I think it speaks a lot to the Bears coaching staff.
Oh, it does.
Even a marginal coaching staff wins that game against the Browns last week.
You're throwing the ball with Fields when you're up by 10 points with 6 minutes left. Incomplete stops the clock, and then 10-yard sacks.
That was the story last week. There was teams making bad decisions that cost them the game. Often it's like, oh man, they got away with that. But the Bears didn't get away with it. Philly didn't get away with it. There's, all these. Minnesota didn't get away with, just running some really bad short yardage stuff in overtime. Like there's a bunch of teams that had victory and it just slipped away from them.
That's why I call him coaching. That's why I call him Eberluz, and I hope Eberluz goes.
Yeah, I don't. You won't be calling him much longer, I don't think.
Hopefully not. Let's move on to the next game: Seattle versus Tennessee. Tennessee plus 2.5. Total 42. Now letdown spot for Seattle. Big win against the Eagles. They needed this win. The Titans. You think that this team should have nothing to play for now that they're out of the playoffs, but we've seen this before with them. They play anyway because Vrabel's that kind of coach. He's going to make them play. Vrabel's not going to lose his job because of these guys. He's going to have them whipped into shape, in my opinion. I don't know what's going on with Will Levis, but even without Will Levis, this is a teaser leg for me. I'm teasing him, and I'm going to partner him with the Texans. This is my 2-dog teaser leg. I get home dogs a plus 2.5, bring them to 8.5. What could go wrong, Andy?
Yeah, and that's when we were discussing this morning. Like I said, I talked to Drew about this. Like the Levis injury, they downplayed it, but it looked kind of rough. And I said, would they ever think of going to Cunningham? I hope, Cunningham's a downgrade. Willis. Sure. Willis. I mixed up my Malik's. Willis, excuse me.
Malik Willis.
I completely mixed up my Malik quarterback.
One's from Liberty and one's from Louisville.
Yeah. So I don't think they would. I hope they wouldn't go that way. That's probably a slight downgrade. And then I don't know where apparently Tannehill's probably good to go, but that was kind of a nasty ankle injury too. So I don't know what I would do if they actually put him in. The line would move a field goal for sure, just off that being a pretty well established quarterback, and Levis doesn't have anything but a deep ball. But I don't know. This is a weird game. I want to have a little more information on Levis. If it is him, if he's fine to go, it's probably, like you said, a really nice home dog teaser leg versus a Seattle team that's been honestly scuffling outside of semi miraculous final drive. Like Drew Lock threw 2 interceptions on that final drive. Let's kind of tell it how it is. Like DK Metcalf bailed him out the one time, and I mean it wasn't all Drew Lock magic. There were some rough times there. Seattle is still not right. We'll see if Geno goes.
Why is Ryan Tannehill ahead in the depth chart on ESPN here over Malik Willis? I mean, isn't he in Pout Central right now where he won't play?
And that's what I'm saying. I have no idea what the situation would be if like Levis is limited here.
Yeah,
like what they would do.
Well, I'd take Tannehill way ahead of Willis right now. I think he's probably equal, at least with what Levis personally, maybe even a little better at this point. The other teams should rally around him unless he's I don't know. It's a teaser leg based upon also Seattle's woes, because funny enough, even though Geno didn't win this game, it's kind of weird. He's coming back in. They beat the Eagles. A little bit of pressure on him, I think, trying to make the playoffs. Seattle is, I look at them as a formidable team, but certainly not. I don't even know if I have them as average in my power ratings. I think I have them around slightly below average, to be honest with you.
You know where I'm at. It's funny. I make this 2.5. So
okay.
I'm fine. I guess I'm fine with the number 2.44.
Well, there you go. You're right on the number here.
We're fine with the market here, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Seattle I have barely above average. So I think it's a great teaser leg. Let's move on to the next game. Colts versus Falcons, and the Falcons are -1. The total is 44.5. What are you thinking about this one? Because we have a new quarterback with the Falcons.
It's not a big. I don't have a huge difference between the two. They're both huge liabilities to do something stupid. This team is poorly coached. I'm probably just done betting Falcons games because I don't know I just don't know what the game plan is going to be, or if it's going to have any semblance of well thought out game planning. I hope this is another coach we see hit the road, because there's too much talent on this offense to be playing games like this where you score that many points against Carolina. Jonathan Taylor, full participant in practice today. Michael Pittman was limited, which is good, I guess, but often with this concussion stuff, they're able to practice in a limited fashion, even though they're still in the protocol. We'll see. That was a nasty lick. Zach Moss didn't practice. All that stuff matters a lot, but like I said, I'm not betting this game.
I mean, Falcons number 2.
I'm making a pick. I'm fine with this price.
That's a good pick. I make it a pick too. And Heineke is a little erratic, and I bet the under 44.5. I don't like it as much now with Heineke. I think he's a little more erratic than Ritter. Game plan could change a little bit. There's a lot of pressure for them to throw the ball, even though they should be running the ball against the Colts, who ranks 21st in opponent rush EPA. The Falcons are 2 in opponent rush EPA. And, maybe that some of that's based on their division being so bad too. But Jonathan Taylor, can you break that? I don't know. It's a perfect pick. I don't want to do anything with this game minus just hold on to that 44.5 under. It's a key number of 44. So hopefully it stays under for me. I know it's on a pretty good field, unfortunately, in Atlanta. So that's my issue. Commies versus Jets. Jets -3, total 37. Can I pass on this and not even mention anything about it, because this is disgusting, and I don't even want to talk about this game.
I bet Washington. Part of it is a small that we do see another turn to Brissett. Brissett makes a big difference. He's just Howell has a nice arm. We just haven't seen any growth.
Is he starting? Brissett?
Yeah, so Howell will start, according to Rivera on Sunday. We'll see. Maybe this changes throughout the week. That would be great. But I did take the 3. I think even with Howell, I like this price getting points because it's Wilson. Wilson's concussed too. This could be a Trevor Siemian game.
Yeah, Siemian's horrible.
Probably, Zach Wilson not highly rated by any metric you want to go by, but he did play a little better after the second comeback here. I would have it as a downgrade for Siemian for sure. So a bet I made on Sunday on Washington. We're drinking a little.
I will say that the Jets have the best position group and the defense on the field. I can see this being 0-0 in the final 5 minutes, and next
That'd be
field goal
great. And
wins.
just call it a tie.
There you go. Two. Let's see 2-0.
Washington has covered without scoring not too long ago against the Niners, so I wouldn't mind a scoreless tie this one. Game and another game I probably won't watch.
I'm dying for a 2-0 game. I don't know if it's ever happened. I want to see a 2-0 game, and this would be a candidate. So I'll be prepared for that. I would actually watch that for sure. Someone gets a safety late in the game.
There was one of the Vikings Super Bowls that was the halftime score. I believe it was against Pittsburgh. Okay. You know, obviously didn't finish there. Wouldn't be talking about that, but I mean that 2-0 halftime score that checks out.
Here's another ugly game: Jags Bucks. Bucks -1, total 42.5. You know, this number tells me that the Jags might be the right side in this. I don't necessarily believe it. They have some skill position injuries. That's not good. Zay Jones questionable. They lost Kirk, which was, I thought, their best receiver. Trevor Lawrence has some head issues, I think, mental issue. He's had that for a while. You know, there's just some weird stuff that he does out there. Not just the fumble, the pass, but just
that fumble. Jesus Christ.
That changed the whole game. I mean,
it's like his hands just stopped working for a second. So Trevor and Zay Jones did not practice today. We'll see where that goes. Obviously massive dropping down to CJ Beathard. Maybe a bit of a letdown spot for Tampa, whose defense is still, you know, not great. It's playing at an okay level, but if they were to get healthy, it could be good again. That's something that's probably not going to happen yet for a couple weeks. There's still some guys that have, I think, longer timelines than that. You know, this is one where I'm not excited about grabbing this and finding out I bet on CJ Beathard.
And then Beathard just has one of those weird games that, you know, the Jags are in a great betting spot, and the Bucks are not, and that's what's keeping me out the Bucks. It's coming off the Packers win. They're kind of in 4-wheel drive now, and then all of a sudden they do what teams that don't deserve to do, as we talked about, just completely shit the bed, and that's what could absolutely happen in this situation. Another ugly game, but we already talked about this. There's just ugliness everywhere across the board. But here's an interesting spread: the Cowboys at the Dolphins, and the Dolphins are only -1.5, and we're starting the little bit later in the afternoon. 51's the total. This total feels a little bit low to me, even at 51. I didn't bet it. I haven't made a play. I kicked myself last week because I thought the Cowboys finally learned how to win, and I put a little bit. I had them in the teaser leg at +8, and they completely destroyed me. And they got sick, and there's a flu, and you name it. But both teams don't beat winning teams usually, and I hard to say the Eagles were a good winning team when the Cowboys just beat them. But it's weird which one breaks here, you know.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on market with this one too. I make this basically Miami -1. Dallas has been a hard team to gauge all year. They beat the bad teams, they lose to the good teams. The only, basically one exception to that rule either way, when they just no-showed against Arizona, and where they were able to, get it done versus Philly in a, just a great situational spot. I feel like they need a great situational spot in order to beat good teams. And last week was so disappointing from a coaching standpoint too, where they got down and it's like they just didn't know that they're allowed to change the game plan. Just continued to try to do the same things, didn't really, adjust, which is, I guess speaks a lot about McCarthy's in-game stuff. Because I trust him, for the most part, putting together an offensive game plan against the defense they can beat. And I trust Dan Quinn, but that was rough to watch. So I probably will stay away from this one too. Miami has a ton of injuries. Teron Armstead's been injured every week. He has like 9 things on the list every week. Right. His whole body is falling apart. Obviously Tyreek Hill and Achane matter a lot. Mostert and Xavier Howard apparently weren't at practice today too. So this is one where I really got to pump the brakes because there's 70 injuries for the Dolphins that matter.
And I
And
kind of
again, I'm pretty close. If Tyreek plays, maybe this total takes a little jump, but it's already sitting at a high enough spot for 2023.
I wish I would have bet the Bills last week, and I wish I would have bet the Dolphins last week because the injury thing was also an excuse why the thing went down to 6.5 against the Jets, and I missed both. And now you're in a situation where you can't bet the Dolphins; they look too good. Cowboys look like terrible. I'm staying away from this game, man. Completely staying away from this game. I mean, I would consider the over, but I don't even know if I'll get there. I have plenty of time to think about it, though. Cardinals, Bears. Bears -4, total 43. And I'm just telling you, I laid it with the Bears early. I expected it to go up to 5 or 6, and it hasn't. My numbers are Bears by 5.5. My Bears are, I have Bears 5.5 is my number. So I'm a little bit lower or a little bit higher than what it is. I know Kyler Murray's a wild card. Justin Fields, you can kind of stay the same thing, but I mean, the truth of the matter is, the Cardinals are not tanking what people said, right? They would screw up the draft pick. I mean, they can still get the number 1 draft pick if they win this game. If I'm the GM, I'm telling Gannon, dude, play someone else, but that's not going to happen probably. I think the Bears defense has quietly improved a lot. I just think they have incompetent coaches. Sometimes players can get ahead of that. I love what Sweat's doing over there. And the Bears run game is very good unless you're playing Cleveland. And that's what, Cleveland just destroyed the offensive line. But man, I think the Bears should run all over this Cardinals team. So I laid it.
I like this. We're in agreement. I strongly have considered the Bears. I haven't played it yet. I make this 5 flat, essentially. Not like I'm missing out on a key number. I'd like to get the 4 while it's still available. Just need to confirm a couple things. Arizona on the road, cold weather team, long grass up there at Soldier Field. And truthfully, as weird as it sounds, they're playing a much better defense this week. Like you break it out from weeks 9 on. When the Bears started to get a little healthy, the Bears are top 5 defense by a lot of metrics. They can do a lot of good things. And right now I think Hollywood Brown is dinged up. I think DJ Moore is going to be good to go again this week. That's kind of obviously the injuries that matter for these teams. And like you said, the Bears have been able to run. They have a couple guys that have got after it. If they let Fields, scramble a little more, I'm way more worried about him and DJ Moore than Kyler Murray against this defense. So this is on the short list. I like this one.
Okay, good. No, and if you look at some of the numbers, Bears actually, even look at the whole season, Bears are number 3 in rush EPA. Rushing success rate, they're number 3. I mean, they should stop the run, make Kyler Murray have to pass the ball a little bit. My only worry is Kyler Murray getting loose, and that certainly can happen. But they've beat some good quarterbacks recently, and I like the Bears. I would like them all the way up to 5 probably. So I'm glad we're on the same page on this one. Pretty simple handicap here. Cold grass, like you mentioned. Definitely looking at the Bears here. And Bears, no, they choked last week. This is a big spot for them. Patriots versus Broncos. Broncos -6.5, total 34.5. And I'm going to pass on this. We're getting lower on time here, but all I'm going to say is that my numbers are a little lower than this. I have some good sharp friends that like Denver and they moved the number up, but I'm a little bit lower.
Yeah, I'm not quite at 6 here, but it's not a huge difference. And I'm not excited to back Denver in the spot. I don't know what we're gonna get. I need to know Hunter Henry's health. We've had some injury issues for the Patriots wide receivers that matter. The offense looked a little livelier last week, but yeah, not a game I'm super excited. I'll bet the second half. It looks like it's prime time. Me and Drew will bet the second half. That's about all the action I'll have here, unless I find a prop.
There you go. Raiders, Chiefs. I fell for this rabbit hole before, and it's Chiefs -10 begs you to take the Raiders. No, Raiders for some reason just do not match up against the Chiefs. Whatever happens, the Chiefs come through. I know there was one close game a couple years ago. The Raiders coming off that huge win that was just very fraudulent against the Chargers. I'm not touching the game.
Yeah, it's great. I just pulled up, so I have the rest of the games up. I make the last 3 games here. Kansas City -10.6. Philly minus 13.2 and San Francisco minus 5. Like I'm pretty nuts on for the Christmas numbers. And yeah, I'm not I'm probably not getting involved in this. I thought I wanted an under. I was hoping this would open a little higher, so I'm avoiding it.
All right. And so what I'm going to say is I'm laying the points with Philly. And my numbers don't even completely agree with it. And it's because of the recency. And the recency has been so bad with Philly, but they're slowly going to be getting healthier. I don't know if Nakobe Dean can come back. I want him to come back. But this Giants team is so bad. And they were exposed last week and embarrassed. And if a guy like Russell Wilson even calls out his team, I don't think that holds nearly as much water as a guy like Jalen Hurts calling out his team. Jalen Hurts called his team out. The Giants always get there just destroyed because they don't match up well against this Eagles offense. The Eagles offense should just be able to score at will. So as bad as the Eagles defense has been, this is a kid that doesn't even belong in the NFL with DeVito. I'm laying the points at 12. I think this is a blowout. I think the Eagles get it right. And the Ravens, I'm taking the Ravens, and I took them at 5.5. It looks like it came down to 5. I just took them about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. My number's about 3. So I do have the Niners as my best team, but I have the Ravens somewhat under them. It's not like a big gap. It's not as big as this number. I think the Ravens as a dog, I can trust a hell of a lot more than Harbaugh blowing these big leads with Lamar Jackson dancing all over the place. The 49ers, believe it or not, are getting by on their pure pass rush because their secondary is very dinged up. So it masks that. But a pass rush against Lamar Jackson is dangerous because he can just run the ball, tire this defense out. So I see a path to victory, or at least a path to covering this spread with the Ravens. And man, you put some pressure on Brock Purdy, you might crack a little bit. The Niners have shown that he can do that.
Yeah, this is one I'm going to monitor the injury because Zay and Odell are apparently dinged up. They missed practice today. There's no injury report today, though, because it's a Monday game. So we don't get anything until Thursday. I really want to see what we end up with Thursday. But like you said, it's a secondary that's not that great. Like I alluded to this with the Cardinals game. The Cardinals are about to play a much tougher defense. The Niners are a secondary that can be attacked, and I'm kicking myself because I really liked the over in that Cardinals-Niners game. I didn't end up betting it, and I think I might be involved. I think I might be involved in this over if we do get some healthy receivers. So,
I mean, it went way over, buddy. I can see why you're kicking
I know
yourself.
that's the worst part. It's like, oh, it only went over by 40 points or whatever,
I expect this game to go over too. Ronnie Stanley worries me, the offensive tackle for the Ravens, but I just think the Ravens can cover this so many different ways, and backdooring it's certainly one of them. I love the Niners. I think they win the Super Bowl, but I'll take I think the Ravens, this is a test game for them. They're coming in as dogs, so I like the situation. But we're out of time. Andy, really appreciate you coming in at short notice and everything and talking about these games. Love your shows over there, Bet Spurts, and obviously the Deep Dive podcast that I've been listening to for years. Where could our listeners get your great information immediately?
Yeah, at Andy MSFW on Twitter, man. I have a link tree. You know what? That's way easier than spit up. But there's a link tree link right on my Twitter. It's got everything. It's got the newsletters. It's got the podcasts. You can follow me on Instagram if you want some food pictures and whatnot. Check that out. And yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Kev.
Absolutely. And Andy's one of the funniest guys I know. One of the great follows on Twitter. So make sure you check out Andy if you don't already. Great. Have a great weekend. Enjoy everything. And obviously, if I don't talk to you, Andy, have a very Merry Christmas. And
yeah, you too.